Good morning. This is the planning meeting of the Wyoming Board of Education, and I would like to call the meeting to order. I'm going to begin by appointing a treasurer pro tempore because of Mrs. Johnson not being with us this morning. I want to appoint Kara Broderick to take over that position. And so, Kara, I'm going to ask you to call the roll.
Okay, I am here. Mr. Thomas? Mrs. Yee?
Here. Sorry.
Here.
Mrs. Zoller?
Here. Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. We have a number of special presentations this morning. This is kind of an exciting time here as we will bring people on. And I guess what we'll do, Mr. Weber, you'll just need to fill up the spots till we get everybody on here.
Yeah, that sounds good. As we have our primary schools building leadership team come in, I will just say, yes, it's definitely an exciting opportunity that we have to hear from each of our building leadership teams. Our primary will start off the day, then we'll have our middle school and our high school come on. Before they get started, you see great smiling faces here of just a snapshot of all the folks that have done such a great job at the primary schools. But as we reflect on this year, as you know, it has been quite a challenging year for schools, and Wyoming's not immune to the challenges that we faced in a pandemic. However, I will say that great accomplishments have been made in little ways and in big ways, and it's because of the incredible work done by our Board of Education and the commitment that you've all made from all of our staff members, our families, and we often talk about our students and how incredible our kids were, from our youngest of students all the way up through our seniors who just celebrated graduation. And so each year, what we like to do is at the end of the year, we have this conversation where we hear from our building leadership teams, and they talk about the successes that they've had with regard to the work and their goals. And so what you'll hear today is each one of our teams talk about teaching and learning. We'll talk about climate and culture, and we'll talk about communication and the work that has gone on. And knowing that this year was a little bit different because we set goals in March of last year. And then we all know that we shut down and we had to really navigate the changes that were coming every single day. And the people that you see here on the screen, like you will see from our middle school and the high school, are some of the key folks who made such a big difference in creating those plans to help us be successful. So I'll stop there and I'll turn it over to the stars of the show today, and that's our leadership teams. And so we'll go to Mrs. Hill and Mr. Hicks. I'll let you guys take over, and not sure where you'll start.
Well, good morning, everyone. Nice to see all of you. Thank you, Team Primary, again, for a strong showing and support. I'd like to just introduce everyone. We have Mrs. Victor, our kindergarten teacher. Thank you. At Hilltop, we have Miss Stewart, third grade teacher at Vermont. And we have Jen Fox, fourth grade teacher at Elm. Hi, Jen. We have Emily Laval, who is our remote liaison for our students and our staff. Emily Laval. Hi, Emily. Glad to see you. Jen Dobson, first grade teacher at Elm. Kim Stewart, second grade teacher at Vermont. Mr. Hicks, right-hand man, right? And,
good morning, everyone.
Good morning. So we're going to get started. And Tim, I know we're on a time frame, so we're going to make sure we stay true to time to respect everyone's time. Well, first of all, our presentation here today, we are so excited to have everyone here, and a special thank you to our families, our Board of Education members, Mr. Weber, our leadership team for partnering with us to really get through a challenging situation. Our fourth grade team did some idioms, and one of the idioms that they wanted to share was, ever feel like a fish out of water? I think we all could relate to that. So we're going to get started and move forward to the next slide. Susie, you have control over the slides. We are going to start with Emily Laval today because she has some other things that she has to do this morning. But again, piggybacking on Mr. Weber's teaching and learning, culture and climate, communication, we really put our heads together to think about what ways we can make a difference in the lives of students based on a challenging situation. We know we had challenges, we know we had successes, and we know we still have work to do. Navigating through a pandemic. So we're going to start again with Emily. And Emily, thank you so much for the work and leadership that you actually were able to accomplish going through a role that is a brand new role and being able to connect families with administration, with our administrative team here, and also with teachers. So Emily, I'm going to have you start off a little bit about the role that you played and the successes that we had.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Good morning. When Ashley Whiteley talked to me about this role, I was, we were creating something brand new that had never been done, and it sure did change a lot. And it was amazing. What a great experience to work with parents of remote students and families and the children and provide a way for them to have a sounding board for quick access to a teacher, many different questions that came through. We had to figure out, I had to work with teachers to figure out accountability for work and attendance. And we came up with a point system and all of these things to help the teachers with keeping remote students accountable and helping them feel as comfortable and a part of the classroom as they could. I met with the counselors every Friday to talk about students that how successful we were and if we had any students that we needed to keep a watch on and help out. It was really good. And then the biggest thing that I enjoyed and I got to do that was a different kind of role and we hope to do in person was work with Todd Seiler and Becky Abbs with Project Lead. So we had high school students that mentored some remote students, excuse me, twice a week after school. And that was fantastic to see that relationship build between high school students that wanted to volunteer and mentor remote students just to help them socialize. And I did remote recesses 2 or 3 times a day with different grade levels. And it was wonderful to see those students get to socialize with each other from across 3 buildings, because that would not have happened if we had a regular school year. So it was neat to see them form those relationships, especially the 4th graders that were super excited to see each other in person at the middle school, and they already knew each other. So there were some wonderful things that came out of this experience, and working very closely with Ladora and Jeff was a wonderful experience that I got to have and with the counselors. And I was very happy that I got to do something different to help the families navigate remote learning. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Emily. And it was really nice to, Jeff and I logged on a few times to see some of the high school students have familiar faces and really work with their siblings. So great experience. And Emily, thank you. I know you have some other plans, but thank you for hopping on and thank you for taking a leap of faith in all of us for a role that was created. So
it was my pleasure. Thank you.
And then one of the things that we really felt that was important, what really was important in the beginning was to share photos with families and to share how we were keeping students safe. And we put together this parent edition, primary question and answer. We don't have to click on it now, but this was crucial to really kicking off the school year. So there was transparency, there was trust, and there was faith in all of us that we were going to do everything possible to make the environment safe, but also make it conducive to an appropriate learning environment for our K-4 students. And we can continue. So as we move forward, all of us are going to share areas and expertise that we were a part of in these overarching goals that are aligned to the district goals. So teaching and learning, again, just lots of photos, lots of smiling faces, and really making sure that kids felt safe in the environment and also being able to learn at their pace. One of the really big things that we had to figure out was assessment at the primary. And while we did a great job with STAR and our curriculum assessments and our scholastic assessments. We really needed some universal assessments to see where students were. So this year we implemented MAP assessments across, the K-4 and across the middle school as well. And it was a new assessment similar to STAR, but we had to have some training, some professional development, and we did have some growing pains in there. And I look at our team here and they're smiling. We got through it and we worked together, but a great way to capture literacy skills for our students, but also math skills. And then on top of that, navigating a new MTSS model in terms of looking at tier 1, tier 2 supports and what does intervention look like with students. And I think, again, our biggest challenge was we had 2 platforms. We had remote students and we had in-person students, and really trying to pull all those platforms together to really see what students knew, what students needed support with, and how were we going to deliver that support. So I'm going to turn it over to our teacher teams to share a little bit about how we navigated through a challenging situation. And we also were able to see great gains in student growth as well.
All right, I'll take over. Thank you for having us this morning. So with the implementation of MAP, we are able to now sit down at benchmark meetings, grade level team meetings, and have driven conversations about students and their learning. What's really good about MAP is it provides many really useful reports for teachers, whether you're looking across your whole class and looking at the strengths and the things that you're doing in the classroom and the areas of improvement. You can zoom in a little further and go more to a student report if you're seeing some areas of student need, whether that's intervention or enrichment. But no matter where our kids are starting, we are able to see exactly where they're ready to learn next, which is great for teachers because it helps guide where we go in our classroom. We want to make sure that we're responding to how our kids are learning. So MAP gives us the data we need to make some of those decisions. In our benchmark meetings, we were able to look at our class reports, see areas of not only growth, but also where our students are currently achieving, so that even if they're a high achieving student, we're still making that growth that they're ready for. And so we had lots of PD on how to use MAP, how to assign the MAP tests, how to get the testing session going, how to talk to our kids about MAP, because a lot of our students are used to taking a test and acing the test and not missing questions on the test. And MAP will actually continue to get harder until they start missing tests, until they're missing about 50% of the questions to really pinpoint where our students are. If they're getting all of them right, we don't know how high they actually are. So that's one thing that is a little bit of a different mindset, especially for primary students who are used to walking into a test and feeling like they should know everything that's going to be on it. But again, it was educating our kids on what to expect, educating our parents on what these reports look like that are going home so that parents can understand the data. And just knowing as a team, we're all looking at the data and we're using the data to guide our instruction.
And then after analyzing said data, we realized that some of our kindergarten and first grade students could really benefit from some opportunities of extra support. So we decided to form an after-school targeted reading intervention for some of those identified students. The focus of the intervention was to provide a framework with reading components like letter recognition, phonemic awareness, sight word recognition, fluency, listening, and eventually reading comprehension. The intervention supplemented the grade level core curriculum, and we provided that twice a week after school with in-person small groups for about 45 minutes each session. And we had about 2 to 3 students in each group, and we focused on those reading skill areas.
We had a lot of firsts this year, and one of the main ones was we departmentalized as a primary school. And with that came some really exciting things that we achieved. We provide major consistency across 3 buildings that always are, separate otherwise physically. we had the opportunity to have a chance to teach all students, which was very exciting. It was kind of fun for us. I felt like a rock star on occasion because you would be out in the community and you would hear these little voices say, "Are you Mrs. So-and-so?" And I'd say, "Well, yes, I am." And they go, "Well, I'm a second grader at this school, but I know you from the videos." So it was lots of fun for, I think, all of our teams to be recognized out in the community, whether we had them in the classroom or not. It was also a wonderful way for us to see our colleagues, their strengths, and then emulate those in our daily practices too. So it was a wonderful way for us to really grow as a team, as well as the students were growing in a very different format, but a very successful one.
And as we were trying to reach all students, whether they were digital or in person, I feel like the most important thing that we were reaching for was to be sure that every single student in our class really felt a very active and integral part of the team. And we wanted the kids who were joining us in Zoom every day to feel just as much a part of the class as students who were walking in. And throughout the year, that was changing, whether we were teaching in the hybrid format or when we went all in person. And then even at that point, some of our remote students would join back in at different parts during the year. So really making sure all of the kids were a very active member of our team was very important. And we did that in a lot of different ways. Just as Kim mentioned, working really closely with our grade levels to be sure that it was like you got to know all of the kids in the grade level. You know, I got to know all the first graders, no matter if they were in my room or in other buildings. And it was so important that we were communicating regularly so that we could provide all of the needed materials. We did a lot of things, of course, online. We used our document cameras to share information so that every student could see the same material. And we also did like weekly pickups so that remote families could stop by the school once a week and grab all of the materials their child would need so that, again, we could really reach every student every day.
Thanks, Jen. So our next goal, and again, we're not going to read everything, but just give an overview. And Mr. Hicks will talk a little bit about our building leadership team, which many of the teachers here are a part of, and what a wonderful part that was of our relationships in terms of looking at goals, setting goals, talking about the problems and how we're going to solve the challenges, and how we really align together to provide all of the things that Mrs. Dobson just shared as well. Mr. Hicks.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for having us again. I'd like to say one of the things that come to my mind when we think about teaching and learning through this last year, it comes, in my mind, it comes down to one word, and it comes down to collaboration. You know, if it wasn't for collaboration this year, none of the achievements would have been as great as they were. You know, so as we think about the BLT, obviously we meet monthly and we talk about things that we have to work through or things on people's minds that they want to talk about. But it was so much more than just a monthly meeting. Through this year, between all of the obstacles that all the teachers had to overcome, there had to be a strong communication every single day throughout the entire year. And whether that boiled down to some of our new initiatives, such as MTSS or the MAP or the way we were working on benchmarks, you know, all of these things came through BLT to trickle down to our department chairs. But in the end, it was the collaboration that made all of that happen. And so, you know, I'm not going to take a lot of time on this slide, but I think none of this would have been possible if it wasn't for the teachers who were being flexible, who were working closely together, who learned a lot about technology this year that they didn't previously know in years past. I think it made all of us raise our bar to be the best educators that we can be, and to make sure that we're meeting every child, whether they're remote or in person or hybrid at that point. And so I think none of this would have happened through the teaching and learning goal if it wasn't for the strong collaboration, whether it be via Zoom, which obviously we know that took precedence over in person meetings this year, or even in person meetings wearing a mask. and how enjoyable was that? But we made it happen and we did what we had to do. So teaching and learning for this slide, it was all about collaboration.
Thanks, Jack. And the other piece, again, that was really important was the learning platform, our learning management system, and using Canvas. And this quote here, Kim Stewart, I am going to let you take it from here because our teachers know better about the toe and the water and everything about Canvas. So Kim Stewart.
Well, I thank you very much, Ladora. We were a designator. We were charged to have that big toe in by the end of the school year, but due to COVID, we became fully submerged right from the get-go. So, there was no big toe. It was a full play experience, which is just absolutely fine. I think sometimes that's the best way to learn anything new and anything you're kind of anxious about. And for me to be talking about it as a real achievement, just because I'm probably the most lacking tech savvy person there is probably on the staff. And I'm representing the technology part of this. But Kim,
sorry, no, Kim, give yourself some credit, please. You are amazing. So
well, you're very kind. I'm glad I'm on Zoom. I made it on Zoom today. That's a big achievement for me.
You logged in.
I logged in. So Canvas was our main tool of communication, and it played such an important part because we had the asynchronous learners as well as the synchronous and the in-school students. It was a great tool for us to make sure everyone was on the same level or playing field. And so we used it early on just as our key for contact for the children to get on, not only for us and our classroom experiences, but also for their specials as well. And so the children would use that. They would know as part of their regular routine that they would go and they would check the learning grid to see what the activities were for the day. And then it provided links and communication. And then what we did is we went back to being fully in the classroom setting. It was wonderful for the asynchronous learners to know what the process was going to be, and they could refer back to it. And even the children who were in class who may be out for the day for absence, for sickness, or for other reasons, they had that as a referral tool as well, because we stockpiled, we put all our previous learning grids in the Canvas tools so that they could refer back to those if they need to go back to look at a particular subject or a particular area throughout the school year. So it was a wonderful resource, and we used it daily. So I can see all the positives that will be used moving forward with it as well. We also, when we were transitioning back to the classroom setting, we had teachers who developed some programs called the Level Up training programs, where we kind of got all our fellow colleagues the opportunity to see different experiences of how to re-enter having all the students back in the classroom. How do we work with small group when we still have remote students? How do we interact with them, and how do we best do those practices? And it was a great way to support our fellow colleagues and just kind of getting acclimated to the fact that we were going back in fully and how to best serve the students. So that was another thing that we incorporated this year that I think went really well.
And just to go along with that, just really continuing to try to offer as much personalized learning as we could for students. That's something that Wyoming has always done so well at every level, and we wanted to continue that great tradition. So there was, again, just a lot of communication, not only between classroom teachers, but classroom teachers along with special area teachers and special education teachers. It was just so important that everyone was on the same page at every moment. You know, things were changing very rapidly as students returned to the classroom, or at times would need to quarantine. And so they were out for a couple of weeks. And so that communication between everyone in the staff, right to the secretaries, you know, for them to know what we knew and for them to share information with us, it was just very important. And we just had a really great opportunity to constantly communicate with everyone in the staff as well as with parents. You know, I think we have always communicated well with families in the district, but this year above all others, that daily communication with families, especially parents of remote students, was just really vital to the part of the equation.
All right, thank you, Jen. Culture and climate, climate and culture. That is how we survived. In terms of what did it take for us to have the courage, to have the stamina, to feel comfortable with each other, to be able to lean on one another, to share how we felt, to cry, to laugh. Team Primary really, really put that in overdrive and created a culture and climate that was risk-free for staff members first, and then that trickled down to families. And how we accomplished that, again, Emily Laval, I know she had to leave, but kudos to Emily, because that remote liaison was so key, because there were so many unknown factors. And because she had relationships with many of the families, that really helped with building that trust. PowerPoints, and one of the things too is communicating with families through Canvas, not only through that, but principal communication, administrative communication. I started using S'more Parent News this year, and each month I get over 500 to 1,000 viewers. Parents are reading, parents were hungry for information, and getting information out quickly, concisely, and clearly, and including photographs and videos really helped school come alive when parents just could not be here. So that was a vital part of our success. And also internally, weekly bulletins for staff members, Zoom meetings like our teachers talked about with the secretaries, with the reading specialists, and just having that time to meet in a small setting really helped. So the pandemic really helped the primary come closer together, because with the 3 buildings, we were able to jump on a Zoom in a minute and see each other's faces and problem solve.
Yeah, and just to piggyback onto that, the Zoom for this year, you know, obviously I think when we all learned about Zoom, we were all excited. It was like, great, this is awesome. We can meet and we don't have to be in person. And, you know, between Lador and I running between 3 buildings, and the teachers trying to collaborate and come together at the end of a school day. The Zoom this year really helped. Again, when I talk about communication, that Zoom this year really helped us have so many more meetings, which actually needed to happen for all that collaboration. And so I don't know about all of you, but I'm getting a little weary and tired of Zoom, but it was a great thing at the beginning, that's for sure.
All right, next, just some photos there. We have a teacher sitting on our buddy bench, Zooming with a student based on space issues. So kudos to Mrs. Godshall for being creative and working with her students. There's Mr. Pittman as well, working with remote families at home. And again, this all comes together in how we did business here at Team Primary, is communication, voluntary meetings with myself and Jeff called Just Because meetings. Anytime a teacher just wanted to chat with us, they can contact the secretary. We get a 5 to 10 minute meeting, having attitude with gratitude meetings before school that were voluntary, just to give people a chance to see each other. And that's what we were craving. And that's what we did here to make it happen. Staff recognition, it's very important to recognize the work that we do. So we were all in on recognizing our colleagues and had some fun doing it, and some fun comments as well. Lots of photos and plant sale. I'll have Marta talk a little bit about that in our next slide, but also partnering with the JWC. You know, there was a need to have individual materials, so partnered with our JWC, and they helped us with a budget. We purchased items that we thought children would like, and then they even picked up the items, put the recess bags together, put the students' names on them, and every student, from remote students to in-person students, had an individual entertainment bag with either Play-Doh or puzzles. So that was a big hit. So again, you know, thank you to the JWC and all that communication that went into getting what we needed for our students. And we talked a lot about this slide, so we can move forward with that. And now I'm going to turn it over to the marvelous Marta Stewart. Marta, kudos to you for your ball of energy and really taking on some extracurricular, great community projects that really superseded all of our expectations. to the point where, you know, our spirits, you know, feel great and our hearts are filled with the outpouring of support from the community as well as with our staff. So go ahead, Marta.
Well, thank you, Lenore, for that introduction. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all on Zoom. I'm glad we're all here today to talk about the great successes of the primary schools this past year and the crazy year that we've had. As Lenore said, this has been a wonderful time that we as a community here in the Wyoming community, we've all been through a lot this year. And so we all came together as a full staff and said, okay, what can we do to give back to others? What can we do? We've had so many people give to us, parents, community members, our students. We've had everyone come together to overcome a lot this year. And so we were looking for ways to give back and to give back to others, not only in our local community, but in our national community too. And so thanks to great leadership of a lot of people here, such as Adam Beard and his connections too, we were able to create a month campaign called Make a Difference May. And in Make a Difference May, Hilltop, Elm, Vermont, we all came together with 3 major events that we hosted to raise money for people in our local community as well as in our international community. And so we first started off with the plant sale, and Adam Beard, again, I give him a lot of credit. He has the green thumb of the primary. He was able to grow all these incredible plants that were then sold, and we raised over $2,500 in the first week of May on plants, this plant sale. And all of our money was raised to support the building of our sister school in Sierra Leone. We have this great connection with a sister school in Sierra Leone. And so we are very fortunate to work with them over the past couple of years, thanks to Ledora's initiatives and other administrative initiatives that have come together to really make this great connection and make our sister school possible. And we had a goal of needing $6,000 to finish the completion in the building of this school. So we raised $2,500 the first week of May with the plant sale, had an incredible plant sale, had a lot of community support, and it was just really neat to see the community engage in new, safe, healthy ways and still come together to make a great purpose. Later on in the month, we wanted to give back to our local community, and we hosted a Caps for the Cure event to support our Cure Starts Now Foundation here that was started in Wyoming, and it holds a special place in all of our hearts in the Wyoming community. So we wanted to give back to kids who are battling pediatric cancer and find some cures and support their families through these really difficult times. And so we all came together. We wore incredible hats, and all of our students looked great. Our staff looked great. Everyone was positive, excited. And we had a day-long event where we raised over $2,220 in one day for the Cure Starts Now Foundation. And so we were amazed at the support. We were amazed at the excitement and the positivity. And it was really neat to watch all of the kids take their part in giving back to others. Each and every kid, no matter if they gave $1, if they gave $20, if they gave a quarter, they were so proud of themselves to help others, especially in our local community. And it was really neat to see, especially after the crazy year we've all had. And finally, the third week, right before our last week of school, we had our very first ever readathon here in Wyoming Primary Schools. And I cannot get over how impressed I was with everyone's participation, everyone's support. We had all come together as a primary staff and said, we still want to raise, we want to earn $6,000 to finish the building of our sister school in Sierra Leone. And we had a lot of different staff members take on incredible roles to really motivate and encourage everyone to participate. And we were able to not only come together to raise money, but we were able to also show our great skills in Wyoming. Our primary students are incredible readers, and we had amazing support from people such as Mr. Weber and Dr. Whiteley and lots of community members who came together who were reading books to our kids, who were supporting and not only our literacy and our learning and our growth that our kids had shown throughout this entire year. We were able to take those skills they had learned all year long and utilize those to raise money and have that community support. And so kids got sponsors for their reading. They were able to raise a lot of money. And instead of just only meeting our $6,000 goal for Sierra Leone, in that week-long event that we had for the readathon, we raised over $25,000, and it was incredible. So thanks to all the incredible support, not only from the primary community, but from the entire Wyoming City School District community, we were able to achieve so much for our friends, not only here in our local communities, but in our international communities too. So we are absolutely thrilled, and it shows that even though we might have had a difficult situation and difficult time to start off the year, that we can end on a positive note and really give back to others and allow our kids to have the satisfaction and joy to be overcomers and to give back to others who also need our support too. So it was a wonderful time to come together as a community and to end this awesome school year with an even better ending. It was really exciting.
Thank you, Marta. That's awesome. And then just a quick overview. We know that we still have work to do. And this slide, just continues to see the learning continuum as our BLT will meet later on today to look at the goals and looking at curriculum alignment and our next steps moving forward to really close those learning gaps that we experienced through the pandemic. And then our final slide here, and our future and looking at what we really want to accomplish here at the primary that we did not focus on this year. And this has been a goal of ours for a few years now. So I will let Mr. Hicks and a few of the other team leaders share a little bit about our next steps.
Well, I'll jump in. So as we're talking about future writing goals here, writing has been something that the primary has been working on for several years, trying to find ways to make sure that A, for what it's worth, our scores are good on the air test, but B, making sure that all students learn how to write a paragraph, whether it be, in third grade when they start learning how to write a paragraph, to fourth grade multi-paragraphs, and just moving up to finally at the end of fourth grade, that 5 multi-paragraph piece of work that the kids can be proud of. And we have taken that from, years past where it was paper pencil, where a lot of our students now are using their training and their skills taught by our teachers to use the computer in that final draft and color coding. And it's really neat to walk around the classroom and see some of the students writing, and each paragraph is a different color. And the colors represent different things that happen throughout that paper, which is a phenomenal idea, something I had never thought about in my years of teaching, of color coding. How fun is it? Shoot, back in the day, we could use colored pencils. But neither here nor there. Writing has been a huge piece for the primary. It's something that we focused on, collaborated on, and made happen one way or the other. But I don't want to take up the whole time talking about me and the writing goal. But they have done a phenomenal job working on it, collaborating between third grade and fourth grade, even second grade, just talking about what are the next steps, what does it look like, and having the students prepared as they get to the next grade level to jump right in and continue that path. It's been a seamless transition for the children.
Jeff, I'm just going to piggyback off of you. We actually talked a lot about this at a literacy conference that we were all at, and how we wanted to make that alignment start from kindergarten all the way up to the transition to the middle school, and how important the reading and the writing component are together. And so from that discussion, we were saying, how do we make that? How do we build upon the little ones and get them all the way up to a successful outcome when they get to the middle school, because it's such a vital part of all that they do, whether it's assessment based or whether it's just in school work opportunities. So we have started that process, and they start in kindergarten and first grade figuring out what a sentence is and what is a strong sentence. And then we build upon that in second grade, creating a first paragraph, what constitutes a strong paragraph. Then they go to multiple paragraphs in third grade, and then progress to almost a 3.5 essay by the time they're in fourth grade and fifth grade. And the transition has been a work in progress, and we continue to do that. But there is such excitement around it, and how to build upon that and have writing be an exciting part of the learning process for all students. And not to have that fear of writing, to share that expression freely and wanting to do that. And it's exciting to see that the children are excited to write and have that opportunity and have that freedom to write on any genre. It doesn't have to be, a designated one that they're given to write about, but they have the freedom to write and have a variety of choices to do so. So we're growing those writers as we grow our readers. And it's an exciting process to see it come into play after lots of time and talk through the past years about it.
Thanks, Kim. Okay, any other teachers want to share?
I think the foundational work that's happening and the early grades K1, 2 is really setting our fourth graders up to be in a really good place moving to the middle school. Because of the sentence structure, because of the paragraph formation, because of multi-paragraph work in fourth grade, then we're able to take it a step further and add in more evidence from the pieces that we're add in, teach the kids how to elaborate and what does it mean to elaborate. And as we're elaborating, make sure that it's on topic and it really helps boost the writing that we're doing. So our kids are definitely growing in the area of writing. We know that we have more work to do, but it's exciting to be to see that progression and be able to set our kids up for success as they head into middle school.
Okay, thank you. And we have reached, our next slide is our final slide. So Susie, if you can click on this, we're just gonna kind of scroll through this. This is a sample of the communication that goes out to the families. So Susie, you can just kind of scroll through, you know, we say thank you to families, we put sections together, you know, this is the principal's newsletter. We honored Mrs. King for her 29 years of excellence, and she wanted some photos of her next phase of life being a grandma, a lala, or nanny, so Nana. And she also put a little message in there, and then also honoring our staff here. Each month we highlighted our cafeteria staff, our secretaries, our custodians. We think it's very important here to recognize what everyone does. Everyone here matters. So, and the people are excited about that. We celebrated our fourth grade students through a hall parade and just students making signs, and we had Kona Ice, trying to make all of that special. These are some pictures from the plant sale. All of those plants were grown from seeds in the greenhouse, and just Caps for the Cure, having some fun here at the primary while learning globally and internationally as well as locally. We had some pie smashing as a result, pie in the face for those classes who raised the most money for Caps for the Cure. And there's a Sierra Leone video. We had some field day fun. We had a little rain that we had to adjust, but we had a great time. Parent volunteers, awareness of cicadas, how we ended our school year. And, you know, basically we just made it. Here's a picture of Susie there. Let's go back, Susie. I want to show you sitting in the chair. I have a desk from the first class in Wyoming. Susie, if you can go up a little bit. And Susie was in my office, so I had her have a seat in the first desk that was in a Wyoming classroom. And Susie, thank you for being a good sport on that. And so we just kind of moved forward and just ended the year with a blast. So thank you, Team Primary, for showing up. Thank you for your hard work. And thank you from teaching and leading from the heart. Okay, we're done.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you very much for your presentation. I'd like to ask the board now to consider, I know some of us have questions for you, and if you can all stay with us for a little bit longer. First of all, congratulations. The board was able to see the, thanks to Jason Knapp, we were able to see the video that Adam Beard put together about your fundraising, and we were blown away, to say the least. So congratulations. Wow. I don't know what else to say. Thank you. And then may I ask board members if you'd like to ask some questions? We'll take a few minutes to do that. Kara?
First of all, I would like to add my wow to everything that I've been hearing. And just so you know, with so many parents of little ones on Zoom, I've heard all throughout the year as a board member how incredible the primary teachers have been. I learned things going on in the classroom that I had not heard, just because I don't know, I wouldn't have heard about it before, and was just already impressed. And this just, I really appreciate you emphasizing the collaboration and all that goes into that, because you just realize that it just doesn't happen. Like, it doesn't just go, oh, we're great. I mean, you actually have to be intentional and proactive. And just thank you so much. Your love of kids just really shines through. And I'm just so like heartened. Obviously, none of us would want a pandemic, but I see so many things, and it's obvious that you all do, that could be taken forward. Because at a baseline, having a primary separated into 3 schools is a challenge. And just the way you all have handled the pandemic is, okay, I could go on for a long time, so I won't. But I did want to ask a question about, I'm intrigued with the assessments and the map. And I can just see how this is like really informed your benchmarking, and I love that you can take it down, you know, from a big to an individual student. But I'm curious, is it focused on like multiple choice? Do you have a way of getting at, I mean, I just want a little more information on how much it tells you or might not tell you.
I mean, I can start. I think the main thing is that we look at several data points. MAP is only one data point that we look at. We look at teacher assessments, we look at formative assessments, we look at summative based on our core curriculum, and also looking at their reading level, their guided reading level. And I can have one of the teachers share a little bit more in depth about the rigor and multiple choice. And you know, sometimes we have to look at the data to say, is this indicative of what a student can actually do? Did a student guess? Did they just click? So that is one reason why we use multiple, data points to assess students to make informed decisions. We use Ames Web, we look at literacy, we look at phonemic awareness, we look at phonics, we look at comprehension. And all of that is encompassed also in our core scholastic reading program as well. So I can have someone else answer that question. Teacher, one of our teachers. Matt's question, Jen or Marta, do you want to answer a little bit about that? Okay.
Sure, I can speak on it. Yeah, so MAP is a multiple choice assessment. There are, for 4th grade, there typically is around 40 to 50-ish questions. The level of question increases as the kids get the questions right. It goes a little easier if they start to get them wrong until they get to that 50% where they're getting half of them correct and half of them wrong. And that gives you what MAP refers to as their RIT score, which is what they're ready to learn at the time. That's what level they're at. But again, like you said, we know that there's a lot of pieces that MAP doesn't cover. It's one assessment measure that we use. We're still learning a lot about MAP, with this being our first year using it. Our kids are getting used to it. Our teachers are getting used to it. But what's really good is you can pull, like I said, student profiles, class profiles, breakdown by class, and then you can also see the learning continuum for each kid. So you can see, here's the things that they're already doing a really good job of. These are things that they're ready to learn next. And then here's the level after that. So it's kind of a tiered learning progression or a continuum that you see, which is good for teachers, because a lot of times we think, okay, we're following our curriculum, but what if our kids already have that piece of the curriculum? You know, how are we best using our time in the classroom? If we're seeing that our kids are really excelling in this area, then we're going to adjust the methods and the strategies that we're using and up that level. Maybe that means going to some 5th grade standards in 4th grade, because that's what our kids are ready for, and that's okay to do. But yes, there's no extended response or, fill in the blank or anything on MAP. It is a multiple choice assessment. So it is one piece of information that we use, but we have many other assessments that we plug in to really give us a holistic view of our kids.
Yeah.
Just to piggyback on that from a parent perspective, Kara, so MAP comes with parent reports. So as a parent, in the fall, in the winter, and in the spring, you get a nice report to not only show that RIT score that Jen was talking about, but also there's these really nice either pie charts or line graphs or circle graphs, whichever ones we dictate, that really show your child's growth. So you can see how a kid is progressing all throughout the year. And if maybe there's a dip, that's a great opportunity for a parent and a teacher to have that conversation about what that is. Is that something going on at school? Is that something going on at home? And what I like is it gives you not only your child, but your school, then your district. And then also, we don't send this on parent reports, but you can also see nationally, just your fourth grader or your third grader or second grader. So as a parent, it's a really great snapshot besides the grade, just to kind of see your kids' growth and progress, right? It's not an A, it's not a B, it's not a C, but you can just see kind of the skills they're struggling in and kind of know how to reinforce that at home or reach out to your teacher to say, hey, I'm seeing that math as a struggle in comparison to reading. What can I do to implement or help? So it's just a really great snapshot for parents and teachers to help get a pulse of where their kid is as far as growth. We talk a lot about achievement on that report card piece, but I think MAP is going to help us ensure that 100% of our kids are actually growing, not just achieving.
Well, and I also like kind of the emphasis on growth, because you could see a balance that needs to happen, because you don't want kids totally stressed out. I can remember having third graders that would, free, or second grade, I think it was, when there used to be timed math test, and it would cause so much anxiety. These little people really want to do well and grow, and our parents want them to grow. And so it's a balance in managing that social emotional growth and or just well-being, as well as their academic moving along. So
Kara, my own child, when she came home from taking it the first time, I said, how was the math test today? And she goes, you know what? You're not going to get 100 because it keeps getting harder. She goes, but that's okay because it's not about always being right. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what you want to hear from a primary kid, right? I don't have to make 100. It's about testing my learning and my growth. So they're getting it. So that's a great thing.
Well, that's thanks to the teachers.
That's right. That's right. The message and the purpose and the intent of the test, they're able to really explain to our kids, which is so great.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to ask a question about when Emily was talking about her role. She talked about weekly conversations with the counselor and trying to eyeball the situations before they got out of hand in terms of anxiety and concerns among the children. Do you see that as a process you can make happen next year as well and internalize it in the normal world we're now going to?
And I'll jump in. We have talked to the counselors several times, and again, working closely with Emily, remote, especially for our younger little ones, is not ideal. In my opinion, they're not with a class, they're not learning social skills, they're not being a part of something bigger that little kids love. To ride that big yellow bus, and so we have had many discussions with our counselors and Emily Laval talking about students, how are they doing academically, but how are they doing socially and emotionally as well. And having an idea of those students when they come back, which students are going to need help more transitioning back into a classroom setting. And again, part of that, you speak of anxiety. I think a lot of students have anxiety, but even more so now that they're coming back into a classroom where they haven't been a part of for an entire year. And so that's been on all of our minds, and then we include the counselors as a large part of that to also help out in case we need either one-on-one or small group discussions or meetings as well.
Are you going to continue the Emily position? Not necessarily as a conduit to obviously remote learners, but just that kind of role with families?
I think that's a question for Ashley and Tim as we move forward. That's a personnel question, so I personally can't answer that. But I think the one thing we do have in place is, our counselors are responsible for being in the classrooms weekly to teach a second steps curriculum, which is a research-based curriculum. And it talks about all of those social skills, feeling good about yourself. It talks about how to cope with many things. So we're proud of that component also. And we still also will continue, which we have before COVID and the pandemic, of small group interventions, divorce groups, anxiety groups, friendship groups, and all of that information goes out to families mid-year to see with teacher input which children can benefit from extra support and just how to be a friend, or someone's feeling like they don't feel included. But those things were already happening, but we are going to need, and I agree with you, Kara, what is our plan to really help with that reacclimation of social skills and feeling important and feeling smart and feeling like you can do. So those are some things I'm sure that the BLT at the retreat we could talk about, the team will talk about those things.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that. That's exactly right. Those are part of those conversations. When we finish up here with this morning conversation, we go right into those discussions about, all right, where are we now? What have we learned this year, and how do we take that forward to identify those most critical goals? And we're still in that pandemic transition phase, as we've got kiddos who are coming back to school who haven't been in school for a year. And so we've still got to have unique plans to support the groups and also individuals within academic and social emotional areas. So, yep, great discussions too, which have been had, but are to be had in the future too.
All right, thank you. Are there any more questions?
Do a quick thank you, just because I know the time is 8:30. So thanks to everybody who got schools, but a quick, just thank you for continuing to adapt and grow with it. Cause I'm sure like we thought it was hard as parents. So for you to be teachers and running it and being able to shift, and we're just very thankful, and to see the pictures and hear everything is great. And I guess my quick question is just the takeaways, like Jeff was saying, Zoom can be exhausting, but what I love to see is people who went through primary to see that you all were able to collaborate so well and have those meetings. Maybe something that you did find as your positive from COVID that you could implement, or that you foresee being able to use to benefit you to, I guess, work easier and smarter together. If there is something that you would like to hold on to, I guess.
All right, thank you. I think what we'll do now is transition from the primary to the middle school. Thank you, primary people, for giving us the time that you gave us. Thank you for your contributions this whole year. We are in awe of your work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, team. Appreciate it. All right, so as we transition over to our middle school, you can see that lots happened during a pandemic year. Amazing amounts, and the team said it well, amazing amounts of collaboration. And I think there were some other individuals who discussed being intentional, being purposeful, and being skillful in the work that was done to really identify what the needs were on any given level, and then to create plans to support those needs. And those were ever changing, as you could see in the conversation. All right, so for our middle school, I'll flip it over to Mrs. Klein and Mr. Anderson. Welcome. And I know we have Mrs. Smith joining us too. Hello, good morning. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties with the camera here, so hopefully you guys can see me as well. Everybody good?
See you. Yep.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Tim, is it okay if I just go ahead?
Yep, go for it. Yep.
All right. Well, first off, I want to say good morning and really want to thank, before we begin the presentation, I think it's very important to just thank, number one, the board for the support that we were given this year. It has been probably one of the most challenging year any educators ever had. And to feel supported by our board really was very reassuring as we were leading through this. So I can't go any further without also thanking our parents, our students, our staff, which includes our custodians, to our teachers, to our admin assistants. Everyone in the organization really had to do their jobs differently, and we really came together as a team. So I'm very thankful for that. And of course, want to just thank you all for your ongoing support. So when we started this year, this pandemic year, one of the first things we really needed to do as part of our teaching and learning goals was the creation of a reentry plan. You know, how are we going to re-enter into school? And really that was done with the work of our BLT. I know you probably hear the word, the letters BLT, and that actually stands for our building leadership team. And that is made up of all of our department chairs and other key folks within the building. And we came together throughout the summer and developed a very fluid plan that we could pivot at any moment and make changes when the data called for us to make changes. And so we developed new student and staff procedures, new structures, new expectations for how the building was going to run. And all of that was really done collaboratively through our BLT team. And, you know, I'm very thankful for the colleagues that I work with together, because I felt that we had a very safe plan for our students and for our staff. And it was fluid, so we could change on a moment's notice as needed. So I'm very thankful for our team in the creation of that plan. I think Beth is going to talk a little bit about how did that impact the instruction within the building. So I'll transition to Beth here a little bit about, you know, what did this look like for teachers?
So for us in the beginning, obviously we were all, before school started, trying to figure out how many minutes it would take to wash 30 desks and where you make the children stand and switch cleaning things and where are they going to put their shields at the end of the day. And how are those going to get cleaned and redistributed for the next day, and all of those details, which, like Jennifer said, our building leadership team is pretty fabulous in a lot of different people who can see things from different perspectives and come up with, well, what about this problem and how do we solve that? And I think we did a pretty good job. After the first day, we got back together and said, okay, we need to change about 12 things here to make it work better. And that continued throughout the year, which was really, although difficult, great to see how we could change to meet the kids' needs as problems arose throughout the year. The second thing on here are using Zoom for remote learners, Canvas for all learning during the pandemic. Just like Primary said, us learning Zoom was a challenge, and we had different challenges at the middle school as we have 8th graders and 7th graders who can Zoom bomb and figure out lots of different things that little 1st graders might not be doing, and how to provide secure instruction, as well as the different techniques that we could use to engage kids, like the breakout rooms and different Zoom tools that we became more and more proficient with as the year went on, to not just provide regular instruction when they were remote or when they were hybrid, but also to provide some new unique instruction, some things that we found benefited some children, actually did well for them. Our training on Canvas and Zoom was helpful. We were really lucky, I think, to have Emily Cowan this year. I just want to put a shout out to her. To have that resource, to have a person who can come and help us with all the technology was wonderful. The live recordings of instructions we created to have asynchronous learning. Although honestly, most of our kids came to class on Zoom, which was great, because I think that interaction we found as the year went on was very important, but we had it available for the kids and families for the situations where they needed that instruction remotely.
So in addition to what Beth was saying about the technology of Zoom, this year also was a year where we transitioned staff and students from ThinkPads, more a Microsoft model, to the implementation of one-to-one Chromebooks and using Google. And so in addition to all the other changes, our staff and our students had to pivot very quickly to be able to learn how to manage those two new tools. And so that was, again, the training that our BLT team came up with. I want to give a shout out to Stephanie O'Hare, who was just constantly supporting our staff with putting together videos and so forth on how to utilize new pieces of technology. She provided professional development along with other members of the staff to that ongoing training on Google to both students and staff in those areas. So that was happening a lot during our team meetings. So as the board is aware, we have a personal plan time, and then we have time where teachers come together to collaborate either in the areas of their curriculum, such as English, math, or in times like this where we're all learning new technology, we were able to really provide that professional development in a very timely manner within our teams. So that time was invaluable for our staff to not only learn Google and Chromebooks and Canvas, but also how do we have to learn it and then train our students on it. And that was happening simultaneously. And so I'm very, very impressed with how our staff pulled that together. And as much as the pandemic was a challenge, we also became stronger as a building team because of some of the things that we pulled together on. And so, once the staff and the students were comfortable with Chromebooks and using these new sources of technology, Beth can tell you a little bit about what were some of the new things that we were using that we like and we hope to be able to keep. So
yes, so as we were, as the year started and we were trying to plan the first few days because we didn't know if we would have the kids, we started hybrid, would we have them in hybrid for a week or 2 weeks? Would we all be back remote? What did we need to do? We needed to get the children on their computers, able to log in by themselves at home. Because a lot of our kids, unlike primary, when they were home, were learning independently. They needed to be able to get into these tools, use them on their own. They may not have, older kids may not have a parent sitting next to them, helping them click and log in or do different things. So we created a schedule and a training program, not just for teachers, but for students to start the year to, as quickly as possible, get 5th through 8th graders proficient so that they could engage in learning from home, which is how, half of them started. As time went on, we learned and became more proficient at many different tools. A lot of which we have listed here, like Pear Deck, which is an add-on to Google Slides. It's a presentation tool that also allows the kids to interact with the teachers, to answer questions, to provide real-time feedback to what's going on in the classroom so that there's a universal interaction, both with kids in the classroom and kids at home. But we also discovered that even when we were all in, that it was a great tool to have to use. We have Blookit and GimKit, some different activity type tools that provide both engagement, the children enjoy them, as well as assessment. You can see what they're answering in real time. Both our language arts and our social studies especially got very proficient with digital notebooks and portfolios using Google Slides, different ways of organizing information, of sharing information, of ways for the students to work collaboratively together. I think many of those things will continue next year. Luckily, the district invested in Newsela, which has a huge amount of curricular information and activities and ways that you can assess and engage students real time with things that are happening in the real world. We have Edulastic, which is yet another assessment tool that ties in well with Canvas, that allows us to both give kids practice as well as assessment, and it assesses them, can be based on the standards so that you can be tracking students as well as their progress through the different standards in many of the different courses. MathSpace and Whiteboard and Kami and Equatio, those are some more of my math ones that we use to both for presentation and again for feedbacks. Whiteboard, if I share it with my students, if they're writing on it on their computers, I can see what they're writing as they're doing it. So if they're solving a problem, I can see their answers. Kami is a program that allows students to write on PDFs and engage and then turn them with our higher end Cami, it allows the kids to turn it in directly into Canvas. So I can look and see their work. I can see it real time as well if they're writing and engaged when they're supposed to be, or I can see, oh, hey, look, you haven't opened this and I would like you to actually be doing this work. And Equatio is a program, again, helping with the math interaction, which always is a little bit trickier than just typing words when you need to engage with equations and other activities. And I think a lot of this, although it was a lot at first, and many of us were obviously overwhelmed in trying to figure out the best tool for which student and for which topic, by the end of the year, a lot of us had built a great deal of proficiency, and the kids did as well. It's amazing what they know how to use and get into by the end of this pandemic year, that I think will be great for us going forward. You have the infrastructure that was built up between the computers, and we increased our Wi-Fi and all of that, that makes it even more effective for us to use these tools going forward.
So just navigating through a pandemic, some of the things that were constantly on our minds were, of course, our students and their social time. As adults need that time at lunch to kind of decompress, our students need that same time. And so, this is kind of what our cafeteria looked like during the school year. Students were 6 feet apart. They had their shields. They were sitting at independent desks. Or we had 3 people at a large table. And you can see that as the pandemic was going along, the kids were very quiet in the cafeteria. It was very odd. If anybody has ever spent any time in a cafeteria with a bunch of teenagers, it's usually not quiet. But they kind of weren't sure how to navigate this themselves. And so we started doing different things during lunchtime to engage our students. We started playing some of their music that they loved. On the radio. We have a wonderful sound system in the cafeteria, so we utilize that. We started recognizing kids for being kind. Teachers would submit different slips, and we would give prizes to kids when we found out different ways that they were being kind to each other, just to keep the kids engaged in that lunchtime where they could have a little bit of downtime and still be safe. But I thought it was important to just to remember where we started this year, and that's what our kids were doing, sitting in the lunchroom like that. The pink kitchen gloves were an invaluable tool this year, as we were constantly cleaning desks, cleaning tables, wiping things down. So that's definitely something we need to capture. And then, of course, the face coverings that we had throughout the school year, which our students were amazing how adaptive they were. We really did not have many instances of kids, trying to not wear them. They were very cooperative. We provided breaks when they needed them, and they just were amazing. Our students are just amazing at how adaptive they were. So just some things to capture around the building there. But as we focused on just navigating, we still wanted to move forward with some of the goals that we had this year. And another goal we had was our MTSS goal. And that was this year, we shifted from STAR benchmark, which we had for about 7 years in the district. So we were very comfortable with STAR, and we moved to MAP. And MAP provides us a little bit more details about growth and how our students are growing. And so we learned, and we're still learning. I don't think we're at perfection yet because of so much going on. I think we're going to just continue to get better with how to use these benchmark assessments. But we administered MAP assessments for the first time to both remote students and in-person students at the same time. That was quite an undertaking. Because we weren't familiar with how this tool was going to be able to be managed remotely. Turned out that we were able to do that. We then followed up with benchmark meetings, which were something that we have done for quite some time. The main difference here is with the benchmark meetings was looking at the growth component and how to interpret this new assessment. one of the things I think is important for our parents to know is that the MAP assessment is really for our instructional staff. It is really for them to look at areas that students can grow and how are they going to target their instruction in a particular area. So some of this we probably need to communicate with our parents just so they understand that what we're looking at. This is a tool for us as instructors. And it's really something that we will be utilizing to provide intervention, or maybe we need to stretch our students in a particular area. And that's where the MAP data really comes in. So we did administer that 3 times this year, along with the state air test. And as many of you know, the MAP test at the middle school, every grade level is assessed in both reading and math. And then during the air assessments from the staff, from the state, it is also administered in all grade levels in 3 areas. Science is only given in 5th and 8th, but it is quite a bit of testing that took place for our students. We did bring some of our remote students in for some of these assessments, but if they did not feel comfortable doing that, we did administer remotely. So that was, again, a lot of learning for both our students and our staff. And then we created those in-house trainings on MAP. Again, the way the staff pulled together is just made us stronger. People were constantly, hey, I can help you. Let me jump in here. I can help with this. People were constantly being flexible in order to meet these goals of the district. And they felt that it was important that we continued moving forward in these areas, which I'm very proud of as well. That never at any time did the staff say, hey, we're not doing this. They constantly were trying to find ways to meet the needs of our students and our remote students with some of the projects that they felt were very powerful for our students. And so very proud of how they continue to do that. Beth's going to talk about some of those projects and how they managed to meet those needs of the kids, both remote and in person.
And I'll throw back in also about with the MAP testing, which again, things work a little differently for 5th through 8th grade than kindergarten through 1st. That this being our first year giving it, and the first year the students taking it. And again, just like Primary said, the fact that the way the test assesses, it gets harder and harder, which STAR does as well. The MAP test is a much longer test. It takes 2 to 3 class periods each time that we administer it. And so that was a little bit different for the students. The reports do seem to give us much better information, although because we had so much going on with students, we also had to rely a lot this year on our in-classroom assessments, because you'd have a student who you knew from working with them every single day was doing fine and then scored in the 1st percentile on MAP. And you're saying, okay, well, that's not actually this child because I know this kid. And I think that the amount of time and energy that teachers spent engaging with families and students to know our students, which is always a big plus in Wyoming. We're small enough that we really know the kids. I know his grandma got sick yesterday. And so the fact that he didn't answer any questions on this correctly has nothing to do with his actual learning. This is this person's mental state this year. And that's been a big thing throughout the year for all of us in trying to help the children engage their learning and engage them, is the recognition of everything else that's going on in their world and the whole big world and how that's affecting their learning. But moving forward from that, teachers did try to do many activities to engage students, to engage them with the greater world, and to keep them interested despite the craziness of their learning situation. So one of the projects we have on here is a book project that was done in conjunction with the Spanish classes, where the students worked on learning about the effects of illiteracy and the importance of reading. That included a book drive in which we collected over 1,200 books that went to boys and girls clubs, schools, and little free libraries. There was also a collaboration with the Spanish classes between language arts in Spanish and cowboy bells in Spanish. to create custom bookmarks and learn about biblioburrows. As usual, our English language arts classes always try hard to have choice in novels, and when the children do writing topics and products, different ways to do things. And they even had more choices this year as we kept coming up with new electronic tools for them to use, be they drawing tools and writing tools or different ways for them to create and express themselves. A bit more of a challenge this year is our English language arts teachers, then once they figured out which books the children wanted to read, and half of them were at home, getting them to students, sometimes putting them downstairs so the students could pick them up, sometimes hand delivering the books to students' homes so that they had access to level appropriate and interesting books to try to keep them engaged. I think that was an ongoing challenge for a lot of our teachers, is us getting materials to the kids.
We also had the Kindness Rock Project. So we had $400 worth of rocks donated. And these rocks, if you come on to the campus here at the middle school, you can see they're painted. And they are currently outside of our school and the surrounding streets, sharing little pick-me-up sayings to really kind of keep people focused on the positive things. So if you can brave coming underneath some of the trees with cicadas that are outside of the middle school, you could see some of these rocks, but we got quite a few cicadas around here, so they might be there for a little while. So that was a project. We also had the homeless project through our Cowboy Bells, where the students learned about magnifying giving and homelessness. So we continue to try to continue those partnerships, and where we would bring in speakers and so forth. They were done through Zoom instead of in person, but we partnered with different projects to focus on some of those topics during our Cowboy Bell.
We had the Science River City project in 7th grade science, where the kids work to design a city on a river. This is a culminating project after they've learned about environment and how different ecosystems work together. They design a city on a river. They have to include government infrastructure to create a safe, livable, healthy city. The students they were working both on their computers remotely through Zoom with other groups in order to create these, to combine a whole lot of different ideas, higher level thinking, problem solving skills for how to make a whole society work.
We also had students had their passion project, which was a student-driven project about something that they were passionate about, them wanting to learn. And they, built or created this type of project. You can see some of the examples that the kids came up with there, things from meal planning to, how medication affects the brain, to writing their own chapter books. And so they were able to find their passion and develop a project around that.
We continued our work with the stock market game, especially for our 8th graders, which is, a great real life activity for them. And it's always interesting to hear them start to discuss and get involved. And, they're all going to figure this out and become very rich. This is what many of them decide as they engage in this, but getting them to watch the real world things and apply their math skills and see that things do have an effect in the real world. Because at this age, you often have the kids going, why do I have to know this? What good will this do me? And this is one area where it's very easy to show them. Our 5th grade had a science rocket launching project. For quite a while here, we had 5th graders running around with their 2-liter bottle rockets that they kept recreating and designing, and then launching to see how that would work. It's a culmination of a motion unit. A 5th grade family donated money to help with this, and the kids went over to the high school to shoot off their rockets, and they were super engaged in this project and activity. They were great to see.
So that was just an example of some of the things that the teachers really felt passionate about keeping and making sure that they were adapting those units to be able to do remotely and in person. And so with that, that kind of really goes into our climate and culture and how important that is for a middle school. One of the things I'm very passionate about, and I think that all of our staff members are passionate about, is that every student at least have one adult that they feel they have that personal relationship that makes a connection to them. It could be somebody in the front office staff, it could be the custodian, it could be a teacher. It doesn't matter who in the building, but every student needs to have a connection to someone in the middle school. And so that ties into our climate and culture. And we've done a number of things that we really tried to keep active and open this year during the pandemic. Some of our extracurricular opportunities, we revised some of them to be able to meet the state mandates so that we could have some of these things happen. Obviously, Jan did a great job with athletics, Jan and Jeff, or Jeff King. We were able to have our athletic programs open, but that only affects our 7th and 8th graders. We've got a lot of students that are in 5th and 6th grade that need those connections. And so we have a community member who is an older gentleman. He's a grandparent of one of our students. He reached out to me and said, hey, I've been vaccinated. I want to get the chess club up and working. We had our chess club up and working. We had over 25 kids involved in that. We had our teachers running Model UN. We made Camp Kern happen, which was very, very important to me. It was a day camp, but our 6th graders got that experience. We started a new double Dutch club in the midst of this pandemic. We continued Power of the Pen, where our students continued to be competing at the state level. We had student council really just keep the inspiration going. They were constantly thinking of others, running food drives, appreciating teachers, appreciating each other. We didn't have Chicago, but we had the 8th grade Reds game. That was a new event for our students, so that the 8th grade had something special. We had our green team recycling, Science Olympiad, we had art club. We had the rec center open for our 5th and 6th and 7th graders so that they could have some kind of event for them. And then of course we had our 8th grade celebration. These things are what make the middle school important for our kids. It's where they feel connected. And I'm very proud of the fact that we were able to open up those clubs. There are many, many, many schools that were not able to do that. And we did it. And I'm very proud of our staff and our students and our community for allowing those things to happen. During all of these things, we also felt it was important to make sure that we continued to have spirit, to feel a part of something beyond a pandemic. And so we continued to do Spirit Week with the help of Student Council. We had our ugly holiday sweaters that we were in hybrid mode at that time. So our staff got to wear holiday sweaters twice in 1 week because we wanted to be doing it for during our hybrid, so that each part of the alphabet had that experience. Same with our Halloween costumes. We had to come up with 2 Halloween costumes this year. And we also opened that up to our students, which was a very good recommendation by Mr. Tim Weber there, having some conversations with me. And so very good recommendation for our students. And to celebrate this year, we had the Cicada Hunt in our hallways. You know, there are cicadas that have blue eyes. So most cicadas have red eyes, but some cicadas have blue eyes. And we had a cicada hunt where we had pictures of cicadas all over the hallways. And your goal was to find the blue-eyed cicadas. And then the science department had some prizes they gave out for that. We had Jersey Day, Kindness Week, and we had walk-up songs. And walk-up songs kind of started as a way, you know, when we're coming into the building in hybrid and in masks and we're taking temperatures and we're doing all these things that just feel so unnatural. Our Sunshine Committee, which is a committee made up of teachers, who really just try to bring sunshine to the building, came up with walk-up song ideas. And so every staff member had to submit some of their favorite upbeat songs, and we would play those as students walked into the building. Students kind of thought this is crazy because the teachers were singing and dancing, but they loved it secretly. And so we had that going. So we really tried to keep the spirits up during this time. We also created a new step up day for our fourth graders. So in the past, we called it fourth grade tours for our incoming students. We are rechanging it, revamping it through our counselors, calling it a step up day. We did a special day for each of the 3 primary buildings. We will continue to use that next year, but I think we're going to continue to make it better. This year we were, social distancing and doing some things. I think we're going to continue to tweak that and make that better. But that was, again, a very important day for our students coming to us to have that experience. They didn't have that last year. Last year we had independent tours in small groups of 6 or less. And so it's a little bit different. We also received a grant from JWC to implement a social and emotional curriculum for our students next year. They were kind enough, they gave us about $3,000, which is a lot of money to purchase this curriculum, and our counselors are getting trained on that this summer to really implement that and support our students in the fall when we come back. We've got some pictures here just so you can kind of see the spirit of the kids. That's Mr. Allred, our counselor, with one of our 5th grade students for Halloween. They both they're into cars, so they're car racers. We have our student council. You can see there that the girls came around with different treats. They had their little cart of treats. They'd go through the hallways and offer staff members, whatever treats are on their cart. And then we, of course, had the 8th graders going to Red's Day. On the next page, we have our 8th grade celebration, which turned out beautifully on the stadium. We had it on the track. It really turned out to be a wonderful evening. I was very pleased with how that turned out. I mean, we could invite a lot of parents, grandparents were able to come. The center picture is one of our holiday sweater days. And then, of course, we have Mr. Anderson out on Halloween directing the buses in his elf costume there. Some of the things, these are some of the projects our kids, that was one of the projects they did where they were also Zooming to their peers while they were presenting. The sample at the bottom is some of the data, what it looks like on a map assessment. We removed all of any names, but you can kind of see where a grade level has fallen with some of the data on map. We also, through our new contract negotiations, we really are zoning in on that scheduling piece. And so we developed a course scheduling timeline here at the middle school that's really laying out our timeline, kind of backwards designing things. This is very important as a district. I see us growing in this area next year, collaborating with the other 2 divisions, both the primary and the high school, to make sure we have shared staff. How are we planning our courses and so forth for next year? So that was some of the work our counselors undertook this year. Very proud of all of the work. I feel like I've talked a lot, so I'm going to kind of wrap it up here with curriculum. We have, with the help of Susie, has been amazing with the use of School Messenger, really providing that direct, timely communication to families this year. We have worked well together. Susie is able to jump in, assist, and making sure that message gets out timely and that it's on point and for our families. Sometimes it's very easy for me to get a little long-winded, and Susie keeps me on point. And so very nice communication system there. We also are continuing to use our blog to communicate with those basic reminders. Hey, we got clubs practice going on, basketball practice going on, or kids did this, or don't forget to check the lost and found. Those type of communications are still happening with our blog, with families. So Beth, you want to talk a little bit about what some of our teachers were doing with communication this year?
Sure. So we continued it, and as everyone knows, we had our COVID safe procedures to try to create a way to have open house and parent teacher conferences and course selection formats to continue to communicate things that we used to have in-person meetings, to create videos or have Zooms and have alternative times for to meet with families, grade level videos for families to have an idea about what's going to happen in the next year. And like other divisions, I'm sure there are pluses and minuses. Being able to have some meetings and conferences via Zoom meant a parent didn't have to leave work. A parent could take the hour that they needed to meet with us about their child without missing a half a day of work, or to do that, have that time. If you're meeting with people who are in different buildings, all could meet all at once. So there were some bonuses for us having Zoom as a conference. As a person who teaches 3 different grade levels, not having to run up and down the building through teacher conferences and clicking from Zoom to Zoom is a little bit easier. So having that in place was in many ways a good thing. Communication really was the key this year for teachers. The constant communication through Canvas messaging, sending those, doing the phone calls, emails, a huge amount of communication, way more than usual, was required in order for us to know what's happening at home so that we can best assist the children, as well as to communicate with parents about what was happening at school. Every family had its own issues or disjointed things happening this year because of how the pandemic was affecting them or their relatives or their work situation or their living situation. And I feel that our biggest success was maintaining constant communication with families so that they knew that they could reach out to us. And if there was an issue or if we noticed anything, reaching out to them about the children, so that we were all in the loop on the same page to provide that support. And we also were lucky to have Teddy Bolton as our building remote teacher, as a point of contact, constant person for our remote families. She reached out regularly to them one-on-one, as well as having Zoom luncheons with them or activities, or trying to create things where the remote kids could have some socialization together, because that was also a big concern. With some children like not coming to school, but some are also having that whole social isolation and the depression and anxiety that caused from not getting to be a part of the regular world. And she was a wonderful as our direct point of contact with families, as someone that they knew was dedicated to their needs. I think the other thing that she did, the counselor corner, the remote counselor corner was a way for kids to contact our counselors. I think our counselors had this year, a huge challenge of regularly meeting with the kids, their normal, adolescent social emotional issues compounded with everything that everyone else was feeling this year, as well as health issues and all the other societal issues going on. It was wonderful that the kids were able to access the counselors through their the counselor corner, to sign up to see them and regularly get that interaction, both with our counselors and with our connection with Children's Home, our other counselors that we have here on site for kids to get to see. I think that's a wonderful thing that we have, in addition to just our school counselors, that we have even more intense counseling available to our students who need it.
So our last piece that we're going to share with you is an example of our walk-up song. So I wasn't able to get the music to play to this, but this is one of our staff members that was captured in the hallway. with the song by Saturday Night Fever, Staying Alive is being played. And this is just one of our staff members. That is just a little sample of how music can make an impact and just put a little smile on somebody's face. Because that was a morning. We're getting ready to start the day, and Staying Alive is playing in the hallways. And we happen to see on the camera Mr. Allen coming out of his classroom doing a little Staying Alive dance there as he walks down the hallway. So I'm very thankful for the staff, for the support of the board this year. As challenging as it has also been one of my best years working here in Wyoming. And part of that is because of the BLT, because of the new addition of Michael Anderson here to our team. It's been challenging, but it's been very growth provoking at the same time.
All right, thank you. Members of the board, are there questions you would like to ask? Please do.
I just get sweet. Oh, go ahead, Elia.
You go ahead.
I was just gonna say, sweet, Mr. Anderson. I know you didn't get to hear your sweet voice. So it's your first year here, so congratulations. But just insight from you too, I guess, on how the year went and things that you would like to move forward. Because I thought it was great to hear you, Beth, just say that all those things that you guys instituted, all those technologies, was amazing to hear what's new on our end, because we just hear from my kids maybe what you all use. So it was great to hear all those things. And I just love to hear your insight as well.
No, first of all, thank you. Me being quiet this long, for those of you guys that know me, could have been a goal on this document. That was pretty hard. But no, this year, it's pretty interesting to hear, a lot of conversation has been about how rough this year was. And 22 years in education, and as rough as this year was, I feel like it was arguably the best year I've ever had. So if this is a bad year in Wyoming, I'm really excited about what next year looks like, because this year was phenomenal. Our staff, our team, parents, the students, just everybody. I mean, it's just a special place. It's one of the things I was talking with a teacher at the end of the school year. And I was just saying, I said, if you guys have been other places, I don't think you guys realize, I think sometimes you guys forget how great this place is. And one of the teachers said, yeah, I came from Middletown. I think we do tend to forget about how special it is to be in Wyoming. So it's been a special year. I will tell you that, like Jennifer said, getting better every day. We're going to continue to get better. Jennifer knows that we talk about the big board, which is what we do as head basketball coach. You get done with the season, and right as the season ends, you start writing down things that you're going to do for the next year. And Mrs. Klein would tell you, we've got a big board in here that probably need a bigger board, because we got a lot of things on it to work on. So as great as we are to celebrate our successes from this year, we've got to keep going. We got a lot of room to grow, and we got to continue to do that. So we're going to continue over the summer. We'll take a little break, but we're going to continue over the summer and start building for next year, so that when our students come in August, they have every year we want their experience to get better and better and better. So like I said, for me personally, it's been an amazing thing. Like I said, Beth will tell you, I think the staff was a little nervous about me because we keep rotating administrators. So
still paying attention, Mike, to you showing up each day. I'm
So I can't be happier to come back next year with this staff. And like Jennifer said, it's just it's a special place. Our team is strong. And we're just really excited about what we're going to be doing in August, because it's going to be special.
Okay, Ilya.
I think each division, kind of has a different challenge. With the elementary, we were talking a lot about how hard it is to get first graders to do Zoom and to deal with that. I think about coming together from 3 schools, kind of into the place and trying to engage and interact in the limits, seeing those screens, the kids sitting there, it kind of gave me even different sense for how hard that's been, even hearing about it and knowing that it's been the way we've had to do it all year. So really appreciate the leadership, that you all have demonstrated and the work that all the teachers have done to have this be effective and productive year. I had two questions. One was, I just noted when you talk about the extracurricular activities, you mentioned to be consistent with state mandates. I didn't know what are kind of either state requirements in the extracurricular space that on things you have to offer or that kind of thing.
Well, we had to continue to keep our COVID safety plans. So for any club, the club supervisor had to provide a plan as to how they were going to meet the safety protocols of what the state was mandating us to do.
Actually, the board actually read all those and approved them each time. Yes.
Yeah. So that's what I was referring to. So it was a challenge, for some of our club supervisors are parent volunteers in the community. And so, they hadn't necessarily been in school to see, what we already had in place. So it did take a lot of work, and it took a lot of passion for people who really felt passionate about providing. I think about our chess club quite a bit, which our kids really are engaged in and they enjoy, and how difficult this was for a community member to figure out how to make this all work. But yet he felt passionate enough to bring that back to the middle school.
Yeah. Personally appreciative for that. Morgan participates in the chess club. So thank you for that. I thought the mandates were on what kinds of things we offered, not in making sure that we were safely doing it. So that's helpful clarification. I was encouraged as I was looking at what felt like a wide range of important kind of student directed kinds of things, the passion projects and other things they got a chance to go into. What's the way we communicate to the community the benefit of those kinds of things as it relates to either whole child and or like them having an impact on their own learning, so that there is this wide awareness and support, and we don't just have the vocal detractors sort of drive the direction when they have a problem with the fact that someone's learning about social emotional, kind of education.
I think one of the things unfortunately, I've had to communicate that more in one-on-one situations or a small group, because it's usually a parent that would reach out that may be asking questions about why we're doing certain things. So you pose a question that, maybe this is an area of growth for us as a middle school, is how do we communicate that on a large scale as to why that social emotional piece is so important for our students. I know we did the movie Angst a few years ago, where we had a wonderful parent turnout to really kind of help educate our parents about what are some of the anxieties that our students go through. I know that I believe that Tracy Quattrone is working on getting some of those parent platforms and open discussion nights where we're educating our parents. So I think, Iliad, you bring a great point. Maybe that's an area that I need to focus more on, is communicating that, because the communication that I had with families was more on that one-on-one type communication where they had concerns. I don't know, Beth, if something happened in the classroom maybe that I was not aware of.
No, I think Ellie, you're right that teachers have done a great job of explaining, sending home, this is the project, these are all the things your child gets to choose from, this is how we prepare them, or this is the background information. But I think some work on the why we're doing that. I think as educators in our minds, it's very clear to us why I would give a child choice, why we would read a book, have a discussion, and let the things that interest your child or that are personally important to them direct their, research or their investigation. I think that why comes, think about explaining why. We're like, well, obviously that seems like the best way to go, that they will be the most engaged, it'll be personally important, all of those types of things when it comes to learning. We're much better about communicating the what. And this is the how we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. This is, the choices your child's going to have. But that's really good input as to preempting this is why, why are we looking at this, when the why when we know the why in our heads.
Please don't hear the question as me putting it on you as much as the question of how do we support the things that you want to do, just so that parents understand that.
Yeah, but I think it is part of my responsibility to maybe communicate that a little bit more. Maybe I'm already thinking of some things that we could possibly do if we take the counseling corner, and maybe that's a monthly piece on our blog where we're educating the community about some of these topics. But student choice is very important to students at this age. They love to have choice, and they feel that that's a way that they are able to kind of express themselves. And so a middle school teacher knows and understands the importance of that choice, because the students typically perform better when they get to choose an area of their passion.
I think that'll help the parents too. Oh, go ahead, Beth.
I was just going to say that continued district vocal support of this is what we're about. We are about having children have choice and learning different views and ideas and learning about different things in the world, things that are different from maybe just life in Wyoming and Cincinnati and what the world is like for different people's cultures, types. I think the more that the district also puts that out, then it's less on a teacher. I have this project that I think is great. I think the more the district clearly communicates, and the district communicates well to the teachers, this is what we want, and the teachers are trying to do that, the more that building and districts can communicate out to our community that this is a focus of what we're doing. And when teachers are doing these projects, they are following directives of our school district. This is what we've said we want our kids to be able to function in the world. And there goes my lights. I'm not moving enough.
And I will add too, I think it's going to be a natural transition into this coming school year where we have, again, the opportunity to invite our families in and talk about the school year at the beginning of the year, which we didn't have that opportunity in the same way that we've always had in the past, to have curriculum nights and orientations and those opening the school year conversations where we get a good opportunity to set the stage for the ways in which we'll work with students academically, social, emotional, and how we'll communicate with them. So again, hopefully that the structure of this coming year will offer that opportunity as we've had in the past too.
All right, thank you.
I have a quick question. Well, one, I love all of that because I think the proactive communication is something we've all talked about for all of our different facets, right? That we always know what we're doing, so you think that you're communicating it well. So I think even when Beth, you were saying that, it just helps parents even realize like, oh, of course, but I also have a fifth grader and they did something a little bit differently and here's why. My question, I think I'd mentioned it a bit ago, but since I have you in person, I just wondered, I don't know how many pure students were only Zooming by the end of the year. I know that each month for all of you that transitioned and you were always pivoting. I was just curious if there was a plan for those students who were Zoom all year to reach out to them. I would just imagine that would be a more anxious start, maybe going back, especially for fifth graders who are becoming sixth graders who didn't have that opportunity to experience that first year together. Didn't know what that looked like for you all with those students.
So one of the things that our counselors were focusing on in the last weeks of school was reaching out to those students and encouraging the families to maybe come in for a half a day, come in for a class. And so both of our counselors were working with students in getting them in for a full day because there was a lot of anxiety in some of our students just about returning because they hadn't been in, they didn't know what to expect, what it would look like. And so we've had a number of kids that would come in maybe for one bell and then go home, and then we would build them up so that they would feel comfortable for staying for a full day. But our counselors have been reaching out. They provided tours, just walking the kids around school again with school in session. We felt that it was important that kids come in and start getting a feel of what it might look like during the school day. But so far, we've had, I believe, all of our students come in at some point, except maybe a handful that had some medical reasons for not coming in, to transition them back in. But I feel like this is an area of strength for the middle school, is our counseling staff. That's really been their focus this year, is on that social emotional health of our students.
I will say, just when you're saying that, I know of several people who have just highly complimented the work with the stressful year, with the counselors reaching out and helping with some people that I know with that transition was so important, and grateful for it. I know that they're grateful, and it's great to hear that too.
Yeah, I really, we're at a point, we've got a really strong team. And I kind of said that at the beginning, that yes, this pandemic's been very challenging, but I think Beth would say the same thing. I think the staff has just united and is even stronger than ever before, because we've supported each other with things like this. And the worked collaboratively with our teachers and our counselors to bring those students back. It's not just a counselor piece, it's also involving the teacher in making sure the teacher is able to accommodate and they have an understanding of what's happening with that student as well. So very collaborative year. So it's been very, very positive.
I know it is great to hear all of it, because like we said, I think everyone's struggled, but to be able to find the silver linings of it and see what you can use moving forward. And for you, Mike, to hear you just say, you're right, when you can take it from other schools and that this was your first experience, to see all those positives of it, it's really great. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for everything you've given us today. I think 15 minutes per grade level, per grade block was
not fair.
Because
never gonna happen.
I have a page full of questions that I'm not going to ask, even though I'd like to.
I know. Could I make one comment, Gina?
Okay, and then we'll move on. If you want to start transitioning to the high school, maybe.
Yeah, I just want to say to the middle school, like with primary, I continue to be wowed. Again, all year long, hearing examples of what's going on in the classroom and the ways you support kids. We always talk about, yes, we value academics, but being able to tie that to the real world, particularly now when things are complicated and we're trying to, I think we value helping kids be able to navigate that world. And sometimes that's going to involve teachers. I mean, we hate to say it's brave for teachers to do projects related to homelessness, but these are tricky times we're in. And we just have to keep stating our values as a district. We support you all. And it's about connecting learning to the real world, which is where we all exist and want to do so as good citizens. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you guys, all of you, for your support in that. It means a great deal when teachers try to come up with new engaging things for our students. To know that we have the board support means it's immense for us to know that as we try to balance all of the pieces and help our kids grow and be engaged in the ways that they want to be engaged.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. We will transition over to the high school.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Sorry if it was too long.
No, it's great.
No, we have had a great deal of information that we have learned today, and it's fabulous. As I say, we have more questions.
Yes. No, thank you.
I'm happy to answer anytime.
Thank you to
Thank
the
you.
middle school team. What a great message of engagement and connection at a time in students' lives when that's critical, right? When they're going through so many transitions during those years. Appreciate your time. So now we're going to switch over to the high school. We have Mr. Reed, welcome. Mrs. Keene. We also have Mr. Seiler. Thank you for joining us today and for sharing the things that have happened throughout the year at the high school. So I think I'll turn it to Mr. Reed. Do you want to start off here?
Certainly can. Good morning, everybody. And Yeah, we are certainly ready to share all the great things that happened at the high school this year. I'm sure that's probably been repeated across the board from all from Jennifer and Ladora. Just, you know, what an interesting year it has been, but just so proud of all the hard work from our students and from our teachers to make it what I would consider an extremely successful year, and just couldn't be more proud. And so today, you know, very much excited to share with you everything that we had going on at the high school and the work that we've been doing, and the hopes that this work will carry on. So Susie, if you want to jump to the next slide, we will get right to it. So obviously, following the direction of Mr. Weber here through the goals, you know, we aligned our goals and our work that we did with our students right from this. And so, Susie, we'll go to the next one and we'll get to it. So I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Seiler in just 1 minute here. But when we started focusing on teaching and learning, and really I consider this a goal that we focused on for really the last 2 years, was how do we put students first in the work that we do? We know we have such high rigor and we have amazing students, but the pandemic really kind of brought to the forefront that they have a lot of additional needs. And so the building leadership team at the high school really took this to task even before I had been in the district. It's really been about 3 or 4 years of conversation about how do we look at a bell schedule, and the work that we were able to do here right at the very end to get ready for next school year is our high school bell schedule. And Todd, if it's okay with you, I will let you explain this first one and then take back over.
I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I was muted, everybody. So anyway, Susie, there's a slide a little bit further down. So yeah, that'll be helpful. And as you can tell, not all of us learned to, you know, use Zoom very adeptly through the course of even a year of trying. So it was not all a resounding success, but anyway, you know, the bell schedule is something that really goes back several years, and it was a culmination of conversations that began, I think, when Dr. Whiteley was principal back at the high school, and continued then with Mrs. Bear, and kind of reemerged with Adam late winter, early spring, and really was an outgrowth of what we were hearing from the students. Mrs. Brooks in the counselor's office, Mary Beth, both you know, brought to the BLT conversations, certainly the increased level of anxiety and stress that students were feeling. Teachers noticed that, we were feeling it. And so we kind of generated some conversation around, or went back to earlier conversations around the flex bell schedule. It's an idea that other schools had used, and under Mrs. Bear, we had really made some progress because she was familiar with this model from Indian Hill. What you see here is a schedule that we were landed on as an identical to Indian Hills, but the idea that's encapsulated here is 2 pieces. First is, how can we provide some remediation for students who are academically in need of support? It's not necessarily students that are exclusively at a high end or a low end. It's across the board. There are always students who can benefit from additional help or additional time in terms of their academics. The second one was, how do we give them a break from kind of the routine in the midst of the week, in the midst of a day, to be able to use the time as they need to. This could be downtime. It could be time to meet with fellow students who are working on a group project, for example, and they don't have time because of their activities before or after school, really to get together and have those kinds of conversations. Could be time for counselors to meet with students one-on-one or in small groups. So the basic idea is that we tried to, after experiencing slightly shortened bell schedules this year, what if we stuck to that model of a 45-minute class varied times for week, Wednesdays, Thursdays is kind of where the staff ended up with after we had some surveying and lengthy conversations there. And then build in a flex spell twice a week that would provide 45 minutes of time. The students would be broken up into smaller homerooms, if you will. So each teacher would have somewhere between, on the low side, 8 students, on the high side, maybe as many as 15. We're still working on scheduling those in. But that would become your cohort of students each week through the year, and then teachers will rotate with those students or follow those students through their 4-year cycle at the high school. And the main idea there is you get to know your students well. It provides an opportunity for, if I'm the teacher of this class, to know those kids beyond my role as a classroom teacher, but also understand what their needs are as they come into flex, an opportunity for them to check out to if they're been scheduled by another academic teacher that says, hey, I need to work with you. Let's review a test. Students can also schedule that time on their own. So it provides that opportunity for some academic support and remediation. If they don't need to meet with a teacher, they can just use that as time to catch up on work, or as I said, to meet with other students in a group setting or group work. Time to meet with counselors. So it really is, it's why we've called it the Flex Bell, because it's not wide open in the sense of being a free-for-all, but it is an open time for students to be able to use in a kind of a directed activity that's going to be beneficial to them. So, that's a quick rundown. I know we've been running longer this morning, so I didn't want to go deeper. I think it's probably easier to take questions that you all might have around the Flex Bell than for me to kind of wander across the landscape and try to land on your questions.
Todd, is this somewhat like an advisory period, or
Could be seen as could be seen as an advisory period, Jeannie. That's the idea of starting with a smaller. Again, I'll go back to that homeroom label. We've had homerooms in the past, but it's never been utilized in this kind of a way. So if you follow students for 4 years, you get to know them a little bit better, and that's just another relationship that students have, and it can become advisory in that sense. I wouldn't necessarily be the academic advisor to all of the students in my cohort, because I may not have the expertise to give them the academic support that they need. But that Flex Bell provides us with the ability through using a Google schedule to find out, all right, student A, you need some help. I can't help you, but I can tell you where to go and I can help you find that. Or, we know that your teacher in Spanish has said she wants you to come in and work with you for a little bit of time during Flex Bell today. And so here's the opportunity for you to come do it. So, I think an advisory is definitely a part of the goal of that. Get those students feeling a little bit more connected.
And then I guess my next question is, in the other periods, because you're going down, 10 minutes or so per period?
It ends up being it depends on, it's about 5, a maximum of 7. I think under the older, it's been more than a year, but I think the longest bells we had under the traditional was 52 minutes. So,
okay, all right.
Yeah.
So I wondered in terms of whether you had to look at relevant and essential information in your curriculum and compact it or eliminate.
Well, that was the benefit of going through the compressed schedule this year. And also part of why we didn't want to do a flex schedule each and every day. There was some discussion around, well, if it's mental health, if it's academic support, do we want to do that 5 days a week instead of a limited number? And the 2 primary reasons that we didn't want to do that, one was, as you were kind of leading to there, we all felt kind of the loss of instructional time by shifting from the 50 to the 45. It doesn't seem like a lot, but when you add it up over the course of 180 days, it does become a limitation on some of the things that you can do. And then also, doing small group activities, 5 minutes kind of cuts into your time to debrief at the end, or a traditional test. So we felt like 2 is a good starting point. The other concern is if flex becomes something that's happening every day for students, it loses some of that unique element and just becomes, well, I've got a study hall. And what I can tell you is the kind of productivity in study halls is pretty limited. And so we wanted this to be kind of this protected special time. And by limiting it, we felt like that was a good way to go about doing that. Something we're going to review as we go through the year. I don't think we're going to hit this, nail on the head the first time through. So it's going to require some progress monitoring and continued discussions to see what's working and what's not working, getting feedback from students. We didn't open this up to the students and survey them going in, but that's something we plan as we go through to get some feedback from them to see what's working and what's not with this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Todd, I love how you all have just thought through this. And if you think about our new space in the high school and having that element of some group project time, some of my concerns when we were doing that space is, does our culture in the high school lend itself to students having some more freedom of movement? And I think this kind of speaks to that, or it can. And, I've watched over the course of the year, like with that compressed bell schedule, some of the problems early on were like a test might be scheduled to last longer than the actual given time. And teachers were just remarkable at being able to, pivot and learn and adjust. And I have a lot of confidence this would work the same way. I do have a question, like, say, for example, it is only twice a week, but if you don't have a particular need to visit with a teacher or to get together with a small group, does the student know where to go, like, for that?
Yeah, they'll be assigned. So I would have a group of 12 students, let's say 15 students, who every flex bell, they're going to report to me. Then I will have a list on a Google form of teachers who have specifically requested those students. And so I can say, you're going to go to Spanish because Mrs. Knopp wants to see you. Mrs. Johnson wants to see you down in math. The rest of you seem to be good to go. Are there any of you that want to go see another teacher? And so we can monitor in that way. And if nobody needs to go anywhere, work with a group of friends, they would be in my classroom then and have that time just to get caught up on work that they need to get caught up on. So that's the vision of how that process will work. Monroe High School followed a similar model using kind of that Google form format. And it was just a really easy way for them to be able to recognize within their students who needed to go where. So there's some accountability there. To your point about the kind of the flex time, Kara, one of the things that came up was back during exam periods. We had that half-hour reading period between bells, and the students, they may not have been cramming for that next exam in that 30 minutes, but they were out in the halls kind of decompressing, and it was not a chaotic environment. So that gave us the confidence to say, look, our students, when given the responsibility, by and large, the vast majority of them are using it well. And we think that can be the case with this as well. They proved that also, when we extended to 10 minutes passing time in the halls, it was far more than they ended up needing.
Yeah.
But what they demonstrated is that we had zero behavioral issues at the high school this year. And that's typically where you get it in that unsupervised setting, or where there's a more limited supervision. I won't say it was completely unsupervised. We're always out in the halls to a degree, but I think we felt real confident then. And if we provided them with some flex time and it was, hey, I've got a small group of students that need to get into the RIC and they're going to be there and they're not going to have a teacher looking over their shoulder, they'll use that well. I know that several teachers met Todd Wegenhardt and Angie Edmonds with Jan to look at what are some things that we could possibly do over the summer to create even more flexible space for students to use, because they did enjoy using that. As a study hall teacher, I had more students by the end of the year just asking to go down to the RIC because it was just kind of a different environment for them to study. So, yeah. Thanks.
All right. Todd, thank you for sharing all that.
Sure.
And like I said, the teachers really took this on for years prior. And so to see it finally come together here, it was a goal of ours to get done. And so the fact that it has happened and will be implemented next year is just awesome. So I'll continue to kind of run down, the work that we've done with teaching and learning. Obviously, technology was the name of the game this school year. And, as Todd kind of alluded to, it did not always go smoothly, but the work that really all of us were thrown into to have to implement, Zoom and Google and Progress Book and Canvas and so much more, as the slide says, because teachers were constantly going out on their own to find different ways. I know Jane Roching was telling me about joining a cohort of other teachers where she was the youngest one by about 20 years, she said. And she's like, they just took her under a wing. So, to see what our teachers were able to do to support our students was simply amazing. The new way to assess students in different ways, even with the pandemic ending and, kind of going back to a normal way of life, there's no doubt that what our teachers have learned will carry over into some new practices and new ways to really monitor our student learning and to meet their needs through the new Bell schedule as well. So that was really great. One of the best parts I think of, being a principal is hearing the new ideas that our teachers and students have regarding courses. And so, as always, it's exciting to see what changes will come next year. And so a women's studies and African American studies, as well as literacy for life and all sorts of new world language electives, just continues the mindset of putting our students first and really meeting, what they're asking for and what they're needing, outside of those rigorous courses that they're already taking. We know the course that they have to take, but this is just really exciting for our students. And again, it really just empowers both teachers and students to share those ideas of where we are, in our nation and in our world and what they're going through and what they're experiencing and what they want to learn about. And so, so excited to get those courses through. So thank you to all of you for saying yes to that and allowing our students to take part of that. And what we have just been mentioning, the Dan Jones Center for Research and Innovation. I mean, wow. To get that opened, in the midst of a pandemic and watching it just kind of naturally come to life. I know the work that Mel Wyatt and Karen Reiber were doing to make it both an academic space, but also just a space where kids could go and just decompress and use it during their study hall time to work with other students. And it just changed their mindset. And that was just so exciting that talking to Dr. Whiteley and Mr. Weber, making sure that we try to get as many students in there as possible. There's no doubt that with James coming in, that mission of making sure that all of our students get into that space next year will continue to be, one of the great challenges that we will have, but to want to make sure, because it is such an incredible space for all sorts of different kind of work that we have going on. So yeah, again, at the end of the day, just cannot be more proud of our students and teachers for what they were able to do this year, and so excited for next year for them, without a doubt. And Susie, we'll go to the next one then. There we go. So climate and culture then, so we obviously knew coming into this school year, trying to create a positive environment to the best possible way and continuing to work with all our groups was so essential. And so, we began the year with our start of school celebration, our class meetings out on the football field, collaborating with our PAC. We had donuts and we were able to kind of explain and share and really kick the year off in a positive way. This was also a change and purposeful, because we were very concerned not only with COVID, but the stress our students faced in the summertime. Families do go on vacation that very last week of July and even in the first couple weeks of August. So trying to, pick your schedule up or get your device back, or I'm going to miss that meeting, or they're at a camp, we were creating that stress. And so we were able to change that, this school year. And the pandemic, of course, kind of helped because of social distancing, but that was the reason this idea came to be, was to make sure families of Wyoming could go on that trip, or stay locked down in this case, so that they could enjoy the summer all the way, and that with the first day of school was really the beginning, to be able to get devices and get their information and things of that nature. But I can't begin to express my thanks to our PAC this year for all the wonderful things they did for our students and our staff. Oh my goodness, the stuff that they were bringing to us was just incredible. The next part that we focused on at the high school was mental health. Through Mrs. Brooks and Mrs. Corbin, I mean, they were just so instrumental in working to get our needs assessment. We've launched Hope Squad. We were doing staff yoga. I didn't participate. Yoga's not my thing, but others did. Mrs. King did, I know. But, just all the time and effort that both, Mrs. Brooks and Mrs. Corbin took to focus in on our students. And it was across the board. It was, still the traditional, I have a schedule problem that's, making me upset, to, this is just really challenging to be on Zoom. And so, they really had to expand their talents, and they certainly met our students where they were at. And that was awesome. We continue with our Black History Month celebration. The work of ACES and Wyoming Speaks continued to be just incredible work from our students. And again, it always goes back to our students and the work they did. One of the hopes we had coming off 2 years ago was that for our Black History Month celebration provided through ACES, that it would have been a presentation during the school day, but then one for the community. Obviously, COVID said, no, we're not doing that. So I working with Mrs. Knopp to think that will be the premise for next year. That we will continue to do the celebration during the school day, and then invite the community and family and friends to come see it in the evening. So very excited to continue to see their work, and I know they are passionate about it, and our students respond to it, which is awesome. And then finally, when we talk about just climate and cultures, the events, I mean, my goodness, the question marks that we had across the board to try to pull off anything that remotely resembled high school, we were able to do it. And so working with Tim and Susie on this, and constantly trying to monitor what we can and cannot do, but we pulled it off, from the athletics and the arts, the prom, the graduation, our end of the year celebration. I don't know what else to say other than, wow, I can't believe we were able to do it. We made it. But it was just so essential to make sure that our students felt some sense of normalcy. And so that's why, all year long, it was just kind of wait and see, we can get there, and to be able to pull it off was awesome. And so I'll switch this over to Mrs. Keene now to talk about our last focus, which was our communication and all things that we had going on.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see you. So I'm going to be kind of fast because we have more things to move on to. So first, for communication, is we have the Canvas, which is our learning management system. This worked well. So teachers use this as the main source of information for students. And it was really nice because students really needed to just go to one location to find what they needed. All due dates were required to be on Canvas as well. So a student could click on their own calendar and then see everything that was due for their particular classes on a certain day. We had communication going from administration, counselors, and teachers. This also worked well for students to receive and send emails. Since it was already open, Canvas was just always open on their laptop, so it was really convenient for them. As far as administrator communication, Adam would send out the weekly emails on Fridays. COVID-19 communication went out from him as necessary, and updates as needed. And then I would post pictures and things that were happening around the building and with our students on Instagram. I had done Twitter, but the students don't really follow Twitter. They really prefer Instagram. So that was a great way for kids to kind of see what was happening around the building, and they could request, is this going on Instagram? I would like the picture. And one girl even asked me how to post the series of pictures. So her picture was the first one in the post to show. So they were kind of into that. So that worked out well, and it's fun to kind of watch. So that's it for communication. Adam, back to you.
Well, yeah, so we obviously, so much was going on, and I feel like we are just giving you the tip of the iceberg of all the amazing work. But, simply put, it has been a year. And again, our students are amazing. I don't know how else to put it. Just they were adaptable. They were able to overcome. They were able to make it work, and they knew it was challenging, and they just kept rising up and making the best of it. So just extremely grateful for them and all their effort this year. And thank you to all of you for your support. I know I would run to Mr. Weber with a million questions, and then he would run to you all, and it was just kind of back and forth. And, Susie's support through all the COVID-ness of who's got it and communication and what went out. And so just thank you to all of you, because it was a true district effort to get through the school year. So, Jim, all yours.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from board members? I think that was very comprehensive. I appreciate it. Thank you. I guess one thing we've been talking about through all three of the grade blocks is how you are looking at that mental health aspect, and especially in terms of those who have been on all remote that you're now bringing back in.
Yeah, it's a good question, and one that Mrs. Brooks and Mrs. Corbin had been working through was there's families have reached out to them to provide those check-ins. And at the same time, it's just kind of letting students understand that we're there for them. I know that even we had students that returned in May for the very first time, just making sure we knew when they were coming in the door, making sure they had their materials needed. But it's a very delicate balance between going and grabbing them and kind of almost putting an unintentional spotlight on them, and letting them just kind of find the flow of it, and checking in a couple days later just to see how they're doing very discreetly, because some of them were just so excited to get back in the door, which I think will happen, next year, just naturally, the excitement, and some will still be concerned. But I definitely know Mrs. Corbin and Mrs. Brooks have been working with them already, and their families have reached out to say, hey, could you just keep an eye out for us? We think they're good, but you just never know. And so just that communication is so important with the families.
I also just want to say again, a big thank you. I have high schoolers. I'm in that world a lot. The teachers, I've witnessed a lot of online classrooms and the engagement of students. And I just can't say enough, from March of last year, watching how the teachers just cared so much about the kids, and immediately realized, not just in terms of comfort, but how just their empathy and how that might affect learning. And, I was recently reading this book called No More Teaching Without Positive Relationships. And I read it and I was saying, oh my gosh, I know so many teachers who function this way. We are a high rigor school system, but that we can be better while we focus. There's a dual thing going on, and one interacts and impacts the other. And the level of caring that our teachers have for students on a personal level, the relationships that they try to build, and seeing like your desire to focus even more on that, you can see that progressing, is just something that particularly as a board member and a parent, I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, without a doubt, our teachers really, I think those that it's natural to put relationships first were right there in the forefront. And even those that it was almost the first time that they had to realize that, whoa, our students are struggling and they are personally struggling. And so it was an opportunity to kind of put that curriculum just on pause for a minute and just say, how is everybody doing? Are we all okay? And, hey, could you turn that camera on for me so I could see you're doing all right? And again, those little moments, I think, ended up being the positive change that we needed to be successful. And so, my hope is that relationship piece continues to grow when we get to see everybody next year for real. So it'll be great.
Yeah, it enhances, it doesn't replace academics. It
Yeah,
enhances.
absolutely.
Much
Yeah, that would
appreciated.
be the comment I would make. I don't actually have a question, but sitting in or looking in a few times on my ninth grader who's adjusting to high school and figuring out all the things, I noted there was a certain flexibility or sort of time where they might be doing the instruction in a different way, just to allow for that mental sort of a break and not have such a focus on driving the content that there wasn't the connection around where the student is and what's happening and what's going on. So I just wanted to reinforce an appreciation for the teachers doing that in a way to try to have it all work well.
Absolutely. Thank you. I have to say that as well, because I think looking at, we had to have children working independently, students in the high school, and perhaps that those individual tracks are something that can become part of what the high school becomes. Thank you. Are there any more comments? Because I'll say thank you to all. I know you all have meetings you have to go to right now. So if not, we'll let you do that then. Thank you.
I will just,
Thank you.
and I'll say thank you also to the high school and to all of our teams today. And just what a great example of trying to be reflective of student needs at every level, and listening to students and listening to families and trying to understand what the unique individual needs our kids have, and then addressing those needs and continuing to understand that that is an ongoing effort. Great examples by all three groups, and appreciate the tremendous amounts of effort. We talk about celebrating, but it is critical to understand that the efforts that have been put into the things that you see today have been astronomical, and are certainly to be applauded by all of our staff. I'll go back to our staff, our Board of Education, our families, and certainly our students. Good things have happened for sure. And again, when we shut down this conversation, we're going to go right over to the middle school, where our building leadership teams are going to dig in to talk about, okay, what do we do next? It's an ongoing effort, and it will continue to be. So good things. Great job, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. I'm going to move on to the superintendent's report.
Okay. Thank you. I do have one personnel item, and you can see on the agenda there is a personnel change, and this has to do with Mrs. Gronis, who is going to be moving from a high school administrative assistant position to a central office administrative assistant position to the assistant superintendent, and that is the only personnel item that we have for today's meeting.
All right. Thank you. Then may I have a motion to approve the superintendent's report?
So moved.
May I have a second? I will second. Thank you. May I have a roll call?
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Yee,
Yes.
Mrs. Zoller,
Yes.
and I approve as well.
All right. Thank you. At this point, we are going to move to executive session. I do want to acknowledge in our formal meeting here that we have received a resignation from Aaron Meese as a member of our board, and we will be honoring him at our June regular meeting and thank him for his service and the things he has offered to us. The legal aspects of that are, once a board member resigns, we have 30 days to fill that position. We do have protocol in our board policies, but we also have state law that we have to follow on this. We cannot fill it within the first 10 days, excuse me. And we are in day 8. So we are in the process right now of announcing it and gathering information and comments from our people in Wyoming who would like to have that position. It is it's really more like a 5-month position. It begins at the board meeting on June 28th and ends at the end of December. So that is and we will be appointing someone we will make our 30 days for sure. So after day 10, we will move on that. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. And now we will not adjourn at this time. We will instead move to executive session. So may I have a motion to do so?
So moved.
All right, thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. And may I have a roll call?
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Yee?
Yes.
Mrs. Aller?
Yes.
And again, I approve.
All right, thank you. So we are now moving to executive